the U.S. has targeted roads and bridges based around Bandar Abbas, and it's significant because it cuts the IRGC off from resupply and isolates them. Bandar Abbas is key to controlling the Strait of Hormuz.
You know, I was born in the South. South Bronx.
Good morning, Jim Carafano. Welcome back, my friend.
I got to tell you, this whole thing with Iran just reminds me of the play stupid games, win stupid prizes thing.
I get that. And you know, Kim and I were thinking the other day, because I kept saying, I don't know, what's the president waiting on? What's he waiting on? Like, how many more violations of the MOU does he need before he's going to go kick their butt again? And we finally reached a conclusion he was waiting until after the July 4th celebration to do it, because I can't think of any other reason he would have hesitated that long.
Yeah, well, two things. One, I would say to all the kind of pearl clutchers, and Trump made this horrible deal. The Iranians are going to play him. He's afraid to, do anything else. You guys were like totally out to lunch.
Yes.
But I have a better answer for you than July 4th, and which I think is reflects much more deeply who this person is. This is a president who, like Ronald Reagan, believes in peace through strength. He also doesn't like to waste life, right? And on both sides, you've heard him a million times saying, "Look, I don't want to see Russians die needlessly in the war any more than Ukrainians." And we've all heard a really famous story about when a couple of years ago when the Iranians shot down a drone and they said, "Oh, we have to retaliate." And he goes, "Why am I going to blow up a building in the middle of the night and kill a janitor? What's that going to prove?" Right.
Right.
But every time we do a U.S. military operation, and it doesn't matter how low the casualty figures and losses have been, we put Americans at risk. And I'm the president. I haven't talked to him in years, but I got to tell you that when he does this, he knows the cost in human life. And so the question always is, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this now? And the answer is because, there's a good reason, and it's going to protect American interests. So it's not a frivolous call. So I don't think it's about holidays and, UFC fights on the lawn. I think it's because in order to protect America's interests and what we need to do to this country, today I have to make that tough call. I think that's why now.
How big do you think the threat is on his life? Because you had the whole incident with him needing to switch planes. And then, of course, they have that in Tehran. They put up that big old billboard with Trump in a coffin.
Well, I don't know the truth behind the plane switching thing. I personally, I've always felt like the notion that the Secret Service, not under Joe Biden, but under Donald Trump, would ever put the president's life at risk. And the idea that the president would ever overrule the Secret Service and say, no, I'm going to do something stupid. The evidence we have for that is zero. If you remember, for example, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, when the president said, I want to go on with the evening, and the White House, and they came back and said, sir, the risk is just too high. We can't do that. The president said, okay, you guys make the call. So I don't think the president is reckless in his own personal life. I think the security, the leadership of the Secret Service under this president is actually quite good, and they're never going to put the president's life at risk. So I would say, look, if I were the president, I'd say, look, you're probably the safest guy in the world because you have a lot of people looking out for you. I don't know, maybe Putin's safer because he's got like 80,000 troops guarding him.
Yeah.
But the other thing I would say is, the Iranian track record on killing people is pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
They like to threaten this stuff. And I got to tell you, the last thing they would ever want to have happen is to see the president of the United States assassinated, because they know that President Vance would pave that country into a parking lot.
Yeah, I hope you're right about that. I wanted to ask you your reaction to the president's speech last night. Obviously, he downloaded a lot of stuff, made it available on the website there at the White House. I went and looked at some of it. From a national security standpoint, it sounds like there's some pretty serious evidence that China, he mentioned Russia and North Korea as well, has been pretty active in hacking American election websites. How serious a threat is that, in your opinion?
Well, I am deeply critical of the people, as critics who just dismiss this and, oh, well, there's no proof a vote was moved. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. The notion is they've penetrated, a sacred system, our electoral process, and they've stolen massive amounts of data. That is a big issue. So I think there's two things that we should learn. One we already know is that China is not our friend and that we have to protect ourselves against malicious Chinese activity. And nobody should diminish or discard or go poo-poo about that. That's just saying I don't love my country and I don't care. And hating Donald Trump is much more important than protecting Americans. That's just butt wrong. But the other is look, there is a unbelievable amount of evidence in this country that we are not effectively safeguarding the integrity of our electoral systems, and that states are not standing up to their responsibilities. And so I get the whole thing that it's ridiculous to dismiss concerns about China. It's also kind of unbelievable that we have to just not protect our electoral system because Democrats don't want to do that. That's just nonsense. The other thing I would say is, and this is, I think, really, really important, what was gone on in professional intelligence agencies to limit the President of the United States access to critical information, that's just inexcusable. And I think there are some former people who were in the Trump team who now are kind of persona non grata, and we never really kind of know why. And I think now we kind of know why.
Yeah.
Some of them are just like never getting to the next White House ball.
And some of the documents, I'm showing them to my web camera here this morning, Jim, were completely redacted. Like I went and tried to download some of this stuff. I printed it off because you can't read a single word on this page except like 3 words at the very top that say top secret or something. So that's not doing anybody any good. Always great talking to you, buddy. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks, man.
You bet. Jim Carafano from the Heritage Foundation, heritage.org. Coming up, we've got Congressman Bob Onder. Find out what the reconciliation bill is really all about and if it can deliver the Save America Act. We'll be right back.